Welcome back to the channel, guys. Today I have an absolute pleasure of being in one of my favorite brokers that I've been using for quite a while now. And we, as you can see right here by the logo, in beautiful Lightyear in the heart of London, the COO of the company actually. Wonder, great to have you with us.
Thank you for having me.
And of course with Tess, the head of branding and marketing.
Hi, great to be here.
So we got a lot of questions from you guys, so thanks for that. And today we have the best people to answer those questions. So we're going to go through them and see, where Lightyear is headed. And what's on the roadmap ahead. So to start off with the first question, actually, brokers have been so many in recent times. With the hype in the stock markets, etc. There's been more and more players coming up. You're also a fairly recent addition to the market. The question is, what makes you stand apart, and how are you different to so many other brokers out there?
Yeah, it makes sense. So I think Lightyear was founded about 2-3 years ago by Micha and Martin because they saw that the market for investing in general is still quite opaque. There's a lot of fees going around, and a lot of them are presented in very intransparent ways, and that the average European or the average Brit doesn't really find their way yet to equity markets. And so even though there might be a lot of brokers, the problem of getting people to invest in a reasonable way is actually not solved, and it's still I think a really big unsolved problem. And so the way they approached it was going from their background where they built Wise from the ground up, so realizing that the world is international. The same with stock investing. Most people want to invest internationally. Yeah. But when you invest internationally, it's very easy to get caught up in foreign exchange fees, particularly if you're converting for every single investment that you make back and forth. And so from the onset, Lightyear was set up to be an international brokerage, both in terms of the footprint, we want to be across the whole of Europe, but also in terms of the equities we offer to users. Okay. And then the currencies we allow people to hold. And so if you can hold currency in many different currencies, and then you can invest in many different markets, you're much better off on international investing. So I think that's one big block of it. So make international investing very accessible. And then the second thing, we want to do that in a very transparent way. It's very easy. The fee schedules of most brokers are multiple pages long. And it's because on everything you do and every step you take, and even just holding the account often gets charged fees. And so we want to make that much simpler. We want to make it easily understandable, because we think in the end, like if you're investing for the long run, you should the fees should be easily understandable, and they should be part of your investing decisions. And so that's what we've tried to do. So we have a beautiful pricing page that very clearly lays out exactly how we charge.
I love your transparency. I mean, that's really rare, because often it's hidden all over the place. Make it very transparent. And it's good to have a small fee because it makes it sustainable, but we'll come to this in a second.
And we can be transparent because we also try and keep the model simple, right? It's hard to be transparent if you have a price list with 30 items. And so if you only have like 6, then you can put them on the landing page and you can explain them easily to customers. So that's important. And then the last leg, I think, where we're starting to really make some progress now, is also make the information around stocks more easily accessible, help people make good decisions around their investing. And so, right, we've introduced things like, my favorite feature is the earnings call feature, where if there's just been an earnings call, I can listen from my app, and then I can hear whatever Elon Musk or someone like that explain what just happened in the quarter.
One, definitely. In the gym, I always listen to the earnings calls. For me, I do. I mean, it's amazing. Really, really nice feature. And nobody else has that really. So for me, it was really nice to see it. So well done.
Yeah. So, and we try to do that with information too. We recently launched Web, and Web gives you a much bigger surface. So then you can introduce more information and more lists and more ways for people to discover stocks and to understand them. And so I think we're quite early on the journey of creating like really good, understandable information for users, but we've made some progress, and I think it's really important.
Completely agree with everything that Vandra said, but also the fact that investing in Europe has been around for such a long time, and there's all these different brokers in different countries that are all very hyper-local. There's nobody that's been able to sort of take Europe and figure out how to get everybody investing. Like the different countries, languages, currencies, all of that is like kind of a big nest that you have to like weave your way through. And in places like America, it's been easier to expand for those companies, those bigger ones that have been around for a bit longer, because it's kind of like two exchanges and one language for one currency. Europe is much more difficult, and I think that nobody has cracked that. So while it feels like there's loads and loads of brokers in Europe, if you actually look at who's there and who's doing that for everyone, it's not actually that many.
Thank you for that great point, because many times people ask me in the videos, but it's not available in my country, even though most of them are living in Europe actually. Now obviously we're living in an era of heightened security and cyber security risks. That's all around us. There's no way around it, unfortunately. And it only seems to be getting more and more. We heard of a lot of crypto exchanges being hacked in recent times and so on. So the question some of the viewers had is, how does Lightyear actually protect investors' funds from a safety and security point of view, and what do you do to mitigate any potential hacking risk?
Maybe let's break that problem into two different problems. Which one is like cybersecurity, so like stopping from hacking and making sure that your account is secure, and then how do we keep money safe? I think in both those fronts we take incredibly seriously, and we're also supervised by regulators to take them incredibly seriously. So there are people that are looking over our shoulders all the time to make sure that we are doing a very good job. On security, of course, it starts with the technology we built. So we're a technology-first company. So we're really lucky that we were able to build our company in the last 3-4 years when security best practices were already much further evolved than if you go with a more historical broker that has many different systems connected in many different ways. And so from the ground up, we've designed the way that users access the app and even access the web app with security in mind. And then, of course, that's not enough. So on a continuous basis, we then monitor all of the systems and the things we see, the user behavior, to make sure that on a moment by moment basis, nothing surprising is happening. If it would, then we would jump in. We have like an engineer who spends most of his time around security, and he really makes sure that we're both understanding what's happening at any point in time, and that we have the tools in order to respond if anything would happen. And then lastly, we get third-party tests in to make sure that, right, we think we're building a very strong and stable system, but that gets validated by external parties too. And so I think the combination of like security by design, good monitoring, and then third-party validation sets us up to provide a very safe technology environment.
That's reassuring to hear. And even in the case you were to be hacked, I mean, obviously you have a segregation of funds, right? I mean, they would not be able to access your funds right away, or is that, how would that come into place?
So that gets us to the second point, which is how do we keep money secure? And that's as a financial firm, we're a regulated broker in Estonia. We have a license under MiFID, which is the European regulation, and those set pretty strict rules on how you handle client funds, and it includes where you keep it. So we keep them in safe counterparties, and we run reconciliation processes, again very dictated by regulation, to make sure that every day at the end of the day, all the money is in the place where it needs to be, and that customers are protected. And we have, again, audit processes around that to make sure that also third parties validate that we're doing that in the way that the regulation requires.
That's good to hear. Lightyear is still on its growth trajectory, and maybe you can share some metrics, how Lightyear has evolved from the inception of where it started to where it is now, and maybe give some indications of to see, on what growth trajectory Lightyear is on, and then what's to come.
Yeah, I think Tessa knows what numbers we share.
It has actually been a really exciting couple of years. I mean, if you think about this time, kind of 2 years ago, we were just live in the UK, like a waiting list of a few thousand people, and we were like beta testing, like every single day, learning from these customers, trying to figure out what they actually wanted. And we kind of spent, 10 months or so building just that for UK customers while we were getting our European license. So yeah, about 10 months later, get the European license, launched in about 19 different countries. So basically just the Eurozone for the first European expansion. And we've had since then, we've had one full year in those European markets, and that was 25% month-on-month growth via AUM. That was last year. This year, bigger and better, but we're sharing those numbers at the end of this year. So you can actually just keep an eye on the Lightyear channels, because we've got some exciting things to share when we get to the year close. But in general, the other exciting things that I guess have affect all of your viewers are we've launched in non-Euro countries now as well. First one was Hungary for us, and we're working really hard to localize that product for them as well, looking at their local tax wrappers, their local currency. So I think what is maybe quite exciting is if you're currently in Europe but you don't have the euro, we hear you, we're coming.
Wonderful. So you're growing revenues, you're growing user base, so really it looks quite promising that the growth pipeline is going strong. So that's nice to hear. And of course, as I said, many of my viewers are in Europe but don't necessarily have euros. So that's nice to hear for them that there's more countries coming on board. Obviously, we talked about the transparent fee structure, which is really nice, and good to see that while you still have commission fee trading for ETFs, but on other things there are tiny fees, but once again, really clearly outlined. But how do you obviously keep growing while at the same time charging a fee, but still remaining attractive for the users? Because obviously there are some platforms out there, which I won't mention right now, but they come up with some tactical offers, completely free trading and no fees on anything. But then a year later, they start, introducing some fees. So how, from your side point of view, you keep that sustainable, that you keep on growing, you have the necessary funds to keep growing, but still remain attractive for the users, of course.
Yeah, I think that's an important balance, right? At the same time, we want to build a sustainable business because people invest for the long run. So we need to be around for the long run to serve them. And as you said, like previously, it's what we put a lot of energy into in the last year in order to put the business on a good sustainable trajectory and while keeping fees for users simple. But we think that if we build long-term relationship with users, if we're transparent about fees, and we also charge in a way that we think we can keep on charging forever, so that we don't have to, do sneaky deals or do like deals that are only there for a small period. That we build a relationship of trust with users that over the long run will stick, and that's how we think about charging. We want to charge in a way that we can build a sustainable business, that users get the best value in the market for the long term. And so far that's worked. So far I think in the way we were very early with interest and passing on a lot of interest to users. You have a transparent spread on that interest, but our users, every time the central bank rate goes up, they know they're going to get that, pass it on to them.
I love that feature. So nice.
And so at any point in time, some teaser rate might be a bit better, but we know that as the interest rates have gone up, our customers have benefited, and they don't even have to think about it. And I think the things that type of trust does to users is also means that they don't have to worry what their broker is going to do. They know that we are trying to look out for them. And I think we've seen the same in investing. We know that ETFs are very important for long-term portfolios. And so when we were thinking about how do we structure our fee structure, it's the place that we kept.
That's great to hear. And especially, as you mentioned, the interest feature, it's so great. I mean, myself, I have quite a bit of money there to capitalize on the interest. And I'm really happy that you charge a fee. It's a tiny fee, but I know that way it's sustainable for you and not something, as we discussed, you have a bonus for a few months, a high interest. And then, next month I have to shift my money to another account. So I can really be confident that I can keep my money for a very long time with you because it's very transparent. So really kudos to you for doing that. That's great. Now, moving on, a good question is, of course, how does Lightyear stay ahead and in line with market trends? Obviously, there's always a new flavor of the month, of the quarter, of the year of investing. One time it's ETFs, then it's some dividend stocks, then it's some meme stocks. So there's always something new and trendy coming. So how does Lightyear as a product, keep innovating and keep coming up with new investment asset classes to stay relevant for users, of course?
We, in the end, listen to our users. And our users, what are the problems our users having and what are the problems that they have when they look towards the future? And a lot of our research, of course, we look at markets too and market trends, and we try and understand the way in which they will affect the needs of our users. But primarily, we're a user-focused company, so we talk to our users and we see what their problems are, and we listen very carefully to how those problems change, and then we try to solve those problems for our users. And I think, again, the interest feature is a very clear example of that. Interest rates were going up, customers were getting concerned, customers were not getting any interest from their bank. And so where traditionally they wouldn't have looked for an investment firm for interest, it was clear that they had a problem. And it was clear that that problem had to do with the fact that interest changes all the time and they don't want to stay up to date and that they're not getting enough. And so we launched the interest feature late last year because we saw that was a big need for users. And then, of course, when we launched it, it was very successful and continues to be. And that's a model that we're trying to adopt continuously. I also think that a lot of things are always true, right? So a bigger asset universe, we listen to customers all the time. We have someone dedicated to understand what assets are important to users and then launching them. And so we're always listening to what are the assets that users care about. And we know that the universe is broad and more is always better. Lower fees are always better. So we're always working on trying to find partners. That means we can lower fees for customers. That means we can work more lean, that we can work more efficiently so that we can pass on that benefit to customers. So some things are always true, but for the rest, we try and listen to our customers.
That's how it should be. Love it.
Yeah, I think one of our first hires was actually a researcher for this reason. So we basically spend all of our time figuring out what they need, what they don't have that Lightyear has and what they need, but also what they love about us too, because as a product evolves and grows and changes, sometimes you change things or drop things, and actually you don't want to be that person that drops a feature that everybody's obsessed with. So yeah, we keep very in touch with everything that people are enjoying, what they're missing, what they're also not enjoying. But that helps with we talked earlier about that like hyper-localization in every country. Everybody also approaches us totally differently. Like people in Germany invest completely differently to people in France. So there'll come a time where like as Lightyear grows, maybe also the localized apps need to be different as well. And you can only really do that if you're talking to the customers themselves.
Now, moving on to a question that has been asked quite a lot from a lot of you, and that's with regards to the asset protection limit, which is currently, I believe, at 20,000 euros. But, obviously some other countries, have different regulations, and some of the brokers are offering up to 100,000, especially in Europe. So, yeah, the question was, is that something ahead in the roadmap that might be coming on to Lightyear eventually? Because, as users are loving the app more and more, they want to invest more of their funds, which is a good thing, but obviously you want to have a higher ceiling of protection. So if you could talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I think when people think about the 100K protection, they think about the European regulation around banks, right, where up to 100% is protected by this deposit guarantee. And so Lightyear has protections in place, but they're slightly different. They're the asset protections for investment firms that we have from the fact that we're regulated in Europe. I think another good block of context is that not the only protection that users have, right? Actually, as an investment firm, we are very tightly regulated on how we hold money, how we hold assets, the checks that we do on a continuous basis to make sure that the assets are in the right place. Sure. And that's something we take extremely seriously. So we have a team dedicated to making sure that assets are safe. We work with some of the biggest financial institutions in the world for our banking, some of the biggest clearing and custody firms in the world to hold the assets in a very safe place. And so the limit is only a small part of the way in which we protect funds. Of course, we segregate client and own funds in the way that we're supposed to. And so it's only a small part of it. And I think that's important context to that question.
If there was, God forbid, something to happen and, things will go down. So, and if you had more than 20,000 in your account, how would that be protected? Is there additional insurance on that side, or how could people feel comfortable with any money in excess of 20,000?
Yeah, of course. I mean, the way we are authorized is that any money that customers hold, or any asset that customers hold, we hold like for like we protect that. It's not like there's if you put money into Lightyear, we put it in a safe place. And if that's 10K or 100K or 1 million or 10 million, that money is sitting one for one in a safe place. If you hold one share of Apple with Lightyear, that's sitting one for one in whatever the custody account is that asset is held in, one for one. So that, and we check that continuously. Then auditors check that on a recurring basis. So regulators supervise us on making sure that we have good processes in place to make sure that assets and cash are always safe. It's actually one of the most important things that I think about.
I think as well. Yeah. I mean, you can have the nicest features, but if your money is at risk, why would you put money there in the first place? So
and we understand that. We take that super seriously. Yeah. And so we have a lot of oversight processes internally to check the checkers. And so there's a lot of checking going on. And then we have audits to check. I think the last important point is that the customers' assets are always their assets. So if you put money with Lightyear, that's your money. If you have Apple shares or whatever shares with Lightyear, those are your shares. So in an event of a default, creditors could never get to that. Okay. And these will always be protected. And that's why they're sitting in accounts that are labeled client accounts. They're protected in custody accounts that are labeled for clients. And so the company's assets and the customer's assets are always split. And that's something that we find very important, that regulators find very important, and we enforce religiously.
And just to clarify also for UK investors and users, I mean, the same 20,000 applies, right?
Currently, the same logic applies. So our UK customers are working with both our UK and our European entity. And for now, the European protection applies to them also. And then if we look at the future, of course, we're a young company, and we've launched down in 20 markets. At the same time as we're looking to expand, so get more features and get more countries, we're also looking at strengthening the offering wherever we can, and that means also localizing it further. For the UK, localization might mean local asset protection, and we definitely think about, okay, how do we give users even more a feeling of safety and security around the things that we do, and local regulation, for example, in the UK would be part of that. In addition to all the other investments that we're doing.
Well, it seems we have not only viewers from Europe and the UK, but also internationally. So we had one gentleman from Bahrain, actually, So in general, the question is that something maybe potentially coming up in the future where you expand outside of the homeland, so to say, and look beyond Europe and UK?
I mean, we want to create successful investors everywhere. I think that the challenge in Europe is quite a big challenge for us right now. And I think what we want to make sure is that if we broaden our reach, that we don't reduce the quality that we can deliver to every individual customer. And I think for us right now, and I think for the medium term, it's just to do a really good job at serving the European consumer. There are a lot of needs that they share. There are also a lot of needs that are different, and we need to make sure that for each one of them, we build an exceptional product. And I think that will keep us busy for the next few years.
Quality over quantity makes sense. You can't be everywhere, everything to everyone. Right, so then we got one more very technical question. Basically, inside the app, when you open it and you see your whole portfolio, which hopefully trends upwards and is mostly in the green, which if you are these days, then well done to you. But one viewer was asking if it's possible to actually see, by different time interval, your performance, not just including the money that you deposit into the account, but actual, trading performance. So is there a way to technically display this?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. So we try and make it possible for users to use the data that's on the platform in the best way they can. So we allow them to download CSVs, for example, of your trading history and of statements and things like that. So there's probably a way to get the data out to do this yourself. In the app itself, I think hopefully your viewers have seen is that the information available gets better over time. So I think what you can see now is on every position, you can look at your day return and your total return. Recently, what we introduced is on a stock, you can see on the graph when you went in and out of a stock, and therefore you can kind of like visually plot the return. And we're always looking at ways in which we can give more to users. I think the hard trade-off if you're building a product is you want to make it as simple and beautiful as possible while giving people as much ability as possible to get the information that they want. And I think from that context, I'm really excited about the web platform because it's recently launched. It's something that we're investing in quite a bit. And I think it's exactly the place where you would make it much easier to introduce more functionality for different cuts and different returns. Maybe you want to see not just your total return, but you want to group that in some way. And so it's definitely something that's like very prominent in our minds, even if it's not yet possible.
Well, that's a great point. And I mean, for sake of transparency, I'm also using another broker. I have a couple of them, obviously, and that broker is known to be the most messy broker. I mean, it's so overwhelming. You can get all the information. It's just so clunky and overwhelming. So actually, that's what I love about Lightyear and many of the viewers, that it is so simplistic. So it's, once again, a balancing act. You don't want to clutter it with too much information. But so I like the way you're doing it. And yes, it's getting better and better every time. And the recent rebranding, the colors really pop much more. And as you said, the dots on the graph make it really easy. So kudos to that. And I'm sure more and more features will come.
For sure. But it's good to know what people care about so that we can listen to that and improve.
Right. With this, we move actually already to the final question. And that's, what's on the roadmap ahead? What's coming up? Any interesting features that you can reveal to the users already? I know some of the secrets are, being kept here and built here, but maybe anything that we can look forward in the coming months that might be added to Lightyear.
Yeah, absolutely. Can definitely give you a few sneak peeks. I think something coming very soon, which is very cool, is our first sort of dip in the toe of exchange traded commodities. So you'll see gold on the platform very soon. We also are working on this quite cool feature from a sharing perspective. So you will soon be able to basically blur the value of your portfolio. So when you're like showing the app to your friends and you're saying like, look, this is what I do, this is how I do it. You don't have to have all your numbers out there, which is like, sounds really simple, but is actually hopefully quite effective in like helping everybody talk more about investing, which is actually one of our other kind of goals. Few more countries and a couple of them very, very soon. So like earlier in next year. No crypto. We do get asked this, but we don't get asked it as much as you think we probably would get asked it. I think it's not top of the list for a lot of our customers, but it's something that we're like aware of and have looked into a few times, and probably will continue monitoring to see when the right time is for that.
Some of the improvement to the charts already. What do you think we should launch?
Great question. I mean, I think most of viewers are really interested in stock investing. They're buying ETFs, they're buying stocks and dividends, and that's what I also mostly talk about. I do own some crypto, of course, but again, given the times and as you said, your users are also not asking that much. I think it would be nice one day to have it as a potential class for people to choose, so you don't have to have too many different apps, because right now, I have one app for ETFs, one for stocks, one for crypto, so it would be nice to really have one full sort of investment app. And I think it would be quite interesting some way to have a net worth tracker. So even if I have some cash sitting in my bank account, some crypto on my Ledger wallet, because I don't want to keep it in an exchange, So to kind of have some sort of API that integrates, so I can, just by opening the app, I can basically see my overall net worth. I think it would be really nice to have the analytics, because right now I do it really old school on a Google Sheet. Every month I go through, update all the various platforms.
Me too.
I feel like I'm stuck in the 80s, but I think there must be a smarter solution for that. And I think you have the technical capabilities to have some kind of API and get that. So I think that would be really cool. And something I would love to see more, because again, I'm an avid dividend investor, and so are many of the viewers. And I have a separate tool, which is also Estonian app, that they kind of have to then link to my various brokers that then show me nicely the dividends that I'm receiving and upcoming. So kind of a bigger focus on dividends. I think a lot of people are quite interested in that. So that would be something nice to have maybe one day on the app.
Yeah, I think that's very aligned with the way we're thinking. I think in terms of like having one place for your wealth, of course, our goal is to be so good that every asset class in every domain, that all your wealth will be on Lightyear. And that's right, in 5 years, that will be the case. We might need to work on some bits still, but it's very confusing to have 10 apps. I have the same spreadsheet. I think I have like 8 banks and a few different places through your pension where your money sits, but that doesn't make any sense. It's much easier to manage it as a whole. So hopefully in 5 years it'll just all be a bit Lightyear.
Huge thanks for both of you. Really appreciate the time. Keep on doing what you do. You're doing great jobs with the app. I mean, I don't say that this is not a sponsored video. I genuinely love the app myself. I've been using it. I have my money there, so I speak from experience, and I really love it. So please keep up the great work. Keep on innovating and bring new features. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for having us. It's been very cool to have you in the office, and interesting to hear the questions from your viewers.
Definitely. If you have any more questions, pop them in the comments below, and I'll get in touch with some of the guys from the team here to answer them and get back to you. Next up, check out this video over here, where I'm going to give you a deep dive into how you can use Lightyear on your phone, on the web, and give you all the insights that you need to know to make the most out of the amazing Lightyear app. With this, guys, as always, stay healthy, get wealthy, and I see you in the next one. Ciao.